St. Paul is adamant with the Galatians. For freedom, Christ has set us free. Do not fall back again into the yoke of slavery. And we can hear the urgency in St. Paul's voice, begging his people not to return to their former way of life, not to give in to the mentality that surrounds them, not to pretend that the greatest event in human history didn't happen. You were called for freedom, he says. And he is so insistent on this point because he sees already how people are reducing the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus to a law, a new law, maybe in their minds a better law, but a law nonetheless. And this is what drives St. Paul crazy, because he knows that it is not a law that Christ has come to proclaim. It is a life that we are invited to share with him, a life that affects every aspect of our existence. To follow Christ is to be brought to life, to be set free, to be unleashed on the world like a pack of wild dogs that are in search of everything beautiful, everything true, everything just in this world. This is the freedom that we are made for, the freedom that Christ offers to us. And it makes me wonder if St. Paul saw the way that we walked out of Mass, especially those who walk out a little early, I wonder what he would have to say to us. Because I don't think it would be very different from what he says to the Galatians. We leave this building with a mission. Not to convince people of a law, not to convince people that they have to live a certain way, but to attract people by our presence. And I feel like I preach about this all the time, but it is so essential to the Christian method. God draws people to himself by attracting them to himself, not beating them over the head, but by attracting them to himself. And we can do that. We can be those kinds of ministers of peace and reconciliation and hope by the way that we treat each other, by the way that we speak, by the way that we live. All of these things help people to come to know God, present in our world, because they will know him only if we live in such a way that we illustrate that we have been claimed by him, that we have been chosen by him. And all of it, everything that we do here in this Eucharist is for the sake of that mission. We beg for mercy in the beginning of Mass. We listen to the stories of our ancestors in the faith. We remind ourselves of what we believe in the Creed. We feed on the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. All of it, all of what we do here is for the sake of what we do when we leave this building. For freedom, Christ has set us free. For freedom, we celebrate this Eucharist. For freedom, we celebrate this ritual of faith, so that when we leave here, we can be reminded of what it is that we are called to do, of who it is that we are called to be. Freedom. For freedom, Christ has set us free. And it's not just for our own freedom. It's not so that we individually can feel the freedom of being released from the bondage of sin. But it is so that we can release others, so that we can free them from the cage that they so often find themselves in. We are the ones who have to be instruments of this freedom, to help our brothers and sisters to recognize that life in Christ brings this newness, this new hope, this salvation from loneliness and despair. And St. Paul is talking about freedom in the real sense of the word, not the Walmart sense of freedom, which is a very different kind of freedom, where we have all the options that we could possibly imagine. But St. Paul is talking about this freedom in the Christian sense, which is the ability to choose the good. The ability to choose the good. We don't need all the options. All we need is the ability to choose what is good. And really, we can be in any circumstance and choose the good. We can be in prison and choose the good. We can be trapped in circumstances that we hate and still choose what is good. There is no circumstance in this life that we have to endure where we cannot be free, where we cannot experience freedom in the way that God offers it to us. And we see this in the gospel with Jesus. Luke says to us in the gospel that Jesus was resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem. It doesn't say that Jesus kept his options open. It doesn't say that Jesus was just kind of meandering around the area. It says he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem because our salvation was in Jerusalem, because the will of the Father was in Jerusalem, because the need of humanity was in Jerusalem. Jesus went to Jerusalem. He resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem because we needed him to go to Jerusalem. And this is why St. Paul is so emphatic in his words to the Galatians, because he did it all for us. And how can we go back into slavery if Christ has given his life for us to release us from that bondage? How can we walk back into the cage of sin when he died, breaking us out of it? We might say because it's too hard, or because it's more comfortable in the cage. Because when we're outside of the cage, we're vulnerable to being attacked, and because God asks too much of us. And so we say to God, who has set us free, we say to God, put me back in the cage. Take away my freedom. Take away my longing for something new and undiscovered. Take away this thirst that I have for greatness. This is what we say to God when we leave this church with no passion for freedom, with no zeal for the salvation of our brothers and sisters. We are asking that God put us back into the cage. For freedom, Christ has set us free. Friends, this is what we are called to. This is the invitation that is given to us in this Eucharist. Love God and be free. Give yourself to Christ and be free. Pour yourself out for the sake of your brothers and sisters and recognize the freedom that comes through that. And I know that it's hard. I know that many of us fight against a barrage of temptations on a daily basis. I know that it's uncomfortable to be witnesses to what we believe. But either we follow Christ into a place that is unknown, like the Israelites leaving Egypt, or we run like a little gerbil on a little wheel inside a plastic cage until we just can't run anymore. Our Jerusalem is out there waiting for us. And it's different for all of us, and it's not perfect. It is a Jerusalem that is full of dysfunction and division and greed and sorrow. But it's also a place where true friendship can be discovered and where sacrifice brings new hope. So set your face to Jerusalem, resolutely determined to go back to where you live, to your home, to your community. for the salvation of your brothers and sisters. After being nourished at this Eucharist, run with all your heart to share the hope that has been given to you and to share the good news that Christ has come to set us free.